Well, let's move on to demystifying the pickup patterns.
Okay.
Like, what the heck does cardioid even mean? I'm sure a lot of people are asking that question. So,
Okay.
go for it.
Cardioid, where have you heard part of that word before? Cardio has to do with the heart, right? So it's a heart-shaped pattern. So if this happens to be a hyper-cardioid mic, but I'll just use it for reference here. So if this was a cardioid, the pattern of pickup would be such that the most sensitive spot would be right here. And as it rotates off to the side, it's going to get less and less frequency and less gain until it just finally winds up around the back where it comes in like an angle, like think of a heart shape upside down. So I got this, right? But I'm going to flip it. So where it comes in like this, that's called a null, N-U-L-L. Nullify, to make void, to cancel. So this is most sensitive. This is least sensitive. It's a heart-shaped pattern. So if I want to aim this mic, I aim this at the source, and I aim this part, the null, at what sounds I don't want to get in the mic. So if this is a worship leader, voice, floor monitor. Snare drum, hi-hat.
Yep.
Choir, speaker cluster. I want the undesired sound to arrive at the null. So these are the easiest mics to use because it's just thinking about the source and what you don't want. They have the widest, most forgiving pickup pattern in the front. So if I get around to the side, I'm still going to get some good gain, top, bottom, left to right. As soon as I flip it around, I'm not going to get hardly anything, except everything below 250. It's not going to reject bass frequencies. You know that bass waves are omnidirectional. So if you've got a floor monitor that's kicking up 100 hertz to the back of this mic, you better high pass it.
Good tip.
or high pass the monitor, because even though it's a cardioid, it's going to hear all that bottom end stuff. If everybody understands that, sometimes I use a microphone not for just the sound quality, but for what the talent requires. So let's say I'm a keyboard player and I'm a singer keyboard player. If I'm using in-ear monitors, it really doesn't matter what kind of pattern you use. But if you're using a wedge, do you really want to use a cardioid? Because that wedge is going to be over here. It can't be in front. It can't be here. Music stand, pedals, keyboard. So I have to put it off to the side, which means it's going to get not as loud as if I use a different kind of a mic. It's going to get some of that monitor in the pickup of the cardioid. That's where hyper-cardioids come in. The nulls are off to the side. They're not in back. So hyper-cardioids rejecting from about 120 degrees off axis. So it's sensitive here, not sensitive here and here. And in the back, you've got a little lobe of pickup. So you've got to watch. If there's anything behind a hypercardioid, it could actually pick it up. Now, I can use that as an advantage too. All the beta series of Shure microphones are super-cardioid, which are similar to hyper, just not as radical. So let's say I only have one channel in my PA for the snare drum and a hi-hat. If I used a hypercardioid, I could aim this at the snare and this at the hi-hat. And I'd get a little bit of bleed of the hi-hat into the snare drum channel. Just to hear it, because I don't have a separate mic or channel for it. But most of the time, what you're going to do is you're going to use it to reject sound. So have you ever seen rock stars or even worship leaders who are rock stars with a microphone with two monitors? Have you ever seen that?
Uh-huh.
Well, that mic is probably a hypercardioid because of that. But I've even seen pros make the mistake. They'll put like a cardioid with two monitors here, and that's a no-no. Or they'll put a wedge behind a hypercardioid, which is another no-no, because now it's going to hear all that stuff. So you've got to be careful, not only the type of mic, the operating principle, dynamic ribbon condenser. You got to also be aware of the pickup pattern. Omnis, they pick up everything. So what are you going to use that for in a live application? What? Anything? Probably not.
I don't know. Yeah, probably not.
Probably not. In a studio, you'd use it all the time. You might have 8 background vocalists on your worship team, all with individual mics on different channels. But in a studio, what I would do is put a nice Omni in a beautiful sounding room and put the 8 singers around it. And with one microphone, you'd pick up that whole group beautifully.
Now, a lot of people are using a lav or some type of headset on their pastor that's omnidirectional. How do you feel about that?
Well, omnidirectionals have one advantage over directional mics. The directional mics are the ones we just discussed. Cardioid, super-cardioid, hyper-cardioid. Those are all directional. Omni doesn't exhibit proximity effect. What is proximity effect? Proximity effect is this. When I get closer to this mic, you're going to hear the bottom beef up a lot. Omnis don't do that. So if you're a pastor doing spoken word stuff, you're going to have a smoother response without all the extra buildup of bass. They also they don't hear wind. They don't hear pages turning. They're able to do all that kind of stuff that directionals are notorious for. Plosives. That stuff doesn't happen with Omnis. What you have to worry about, though, with Omnis is floor monitors or PA. If somebody walks near the cluster and they haven't rung it out, that thing is going to feed back way earlier than a head horn is. But in terms of smoothness of a response, for a very natural sermon, let's say, to be read or the gospel to be said, Omnis are probably better. They're not going to be as with all this stuff kind of happening.
Yeah.
If you get it consistent too, I guess it doesn't matter. But they do have directional head horns too, and you got to be careful where you put them. You probably should put them under the lip or aside, over the lip, because if you put it right in front of the lip, you're going to get these big pops and plosives, where Omnis don't do that. And you can put an Omni anywhere too. You don't have to have a head horn mic. If you look at Broadway, they'll put like an Omni on a forehead for singers. They've done projections, spectrographs of how the voice looks as it's coming out of a human lung. It goes up. It doesn't go down. So you got a mic here that's not getting half of what's going up. So when you see Broadway singers, the lapel is on their forehead under a hat or under their hair or something. Or you can put one right behind the ear and Band-Aid it. So if you have a lapel and you want to repurpose it, you don't have the money for a head horn, take that lapel, put it right on your ear, tape it down, and you got a great head horn microphone. It'll pick up everything on the face. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you explained the difference between cardioid, super-cardioid, hyper-cardioid, and like how to choose which one, because I don't think I've ever heard an explanation that clear, and it's basically all about what you want to reject from the microphone, and that's how you choose.
Right.
Yeah.
Mixing sound seems complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Get access to our stress-free training to help you create great sound at church by visiting churchsoundmadesimple.com.